People tend to look down on the Vorcha, and this is unfortunate because, okay, we'll get back to you on that one. But the Vorcha is seen by most as no more than cannon fodder, and the Vorcha themselves aren't exactly helping their case. Being aggressive, primitive, and rather terrifying, this short-lived species is perhaps the most overlooked group this side of the Ralloi. So, let's find out why. Like the Krogan, Vorcha have regenerative capabilities, but the similarities end there, as Vorcha are incredibly short-lived, with most never surviving past 20 years. Their regenerative abilities allow them to adapt to almost any environment or situation given enough time. For instance, after being stabbed or shot, a Vorcha will gradually develop thicker skin. The same principle applies to actions like breathing and simply walking, where Vorcha muscles will adapt to be stronger when on high gravity worlds. This process is not instantaneous, but still fascinating. Unfortunately, it is because of their regenerative abilities that Vorcha are so relatively primitive. Due to the nature of their biology, the evolution of their species was halted long ago. Since each Vorcha adapts to their own environment individually, there is no evolutionary progress for the race as a whole. Some Vorcha are able to carve out a way for themselves, but most are held back by their relatively primitive nature. However, it should be known that their aggressive tendencies aren't necessarily innate. Once upon a time, some Vorcha infants were adopted by Asari and raised away from their native hostile environment. They were raised with care and grew up as productive members of society without the usual Vorcha talent for communicating through violence. Unfortunately, since Vorcha are so short-lived, a large-scale undertaking of this same nature isn't seen as prudent by most species in the Citadel space. Coming from the small, rather barren planet of Heshtok, the Vorcha society on their homeworld is largely clan-based, with hostilities regularly raging between the clans. This is as close as the Vorcha come to evolution, as the constant warring results in each generation being more hostile and aggressive than the last. Okay, so it's not technically evolution, but you have to admit it's a decent analogy. Due to their primitive nature, the Vorcha never accomplished much as a species, at least in the galactic scale, and their history is basically one war after another. It's a bit of a tragic tale, to be sure, but the other races in Citadel space know better than to try and uplift them like the Krogan. The only reason they were able to spread across the galaxy was from stowing away on ships that landed on their planets, as the Vorcha aren't a spacefaring species. When you see one Vorcha, chances are there are more. Even outside of their homeworld, Vorcha keep to their clan-based roots. You'll see groups of them in places like Omega or on the Citadel wards, usually communicating through violence. This was mentioned earlier, and it's not just an expression. Being such an aggressive species, the Vorcha legitimately use violence as a means of conveying thoughts, and it's actually their default communication method. This may help explain why they tend to sound so erratic when speaking, as verbal communication itself isn't their native language. While Vorcha prefer to live in communities, many will elect to live among aliens rather than live alone. The clan ideals that permeate the race simply result in a desire to be among others, rather than only being among other Vorcha. Probably the most well-known aspect of Vorcha culture is their relationship with the Blood Pack mercenary group. Due to their reputable adaptive capabilities, the Krogan of the Blood Pack will snatch up as many Vorcha as they can and physically abuse them in order to make them stronger, faster, more resilient and more aggressive. It's savage and certainly inhumane, but since the Vorcha are seen by most as lesser beings, little is done about this. Plus, nobody wants to go up against a bunch of angry Krogan and Vorcha. Normally, this is where we'd mention the military and government aspects of this week's race. However, we are covering the Vorcha. Their government consists of fight, 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 and their military consists of kill, kill, kill. If Vorcha weren't fictional, that sentence would be incredibly racist, but this is informational, and information isn't always pretty. Just like the Vorcha. So here are a few fun facts to round off the video. Did you know that all Vorcha are voiced by Mark Meer, who is the voice actor of male Commander Shepard? Therefore, scenes like this on Omega was actually Shepard pretty much speaking to Shepard.
I don't know a Captain Gavor. Why would I tell him anything?
Not trust you. Tell Gavon we know his tricks. We not kill anyone today.
And did you know that the Vorcha may be one of the newly discovered or most recent discovered alien species in the galactic scene, as first contact between the Vorcha and the Alliance was made between Mass Effect 1 and 2. There is more Vorcha history that was to be put into the game's codex, but it was eventually decided that this history, which included the Vorcha learning to create their own FTL drive, didn't fit with everything that was already established about the species. So, what do you think of the Vorcha? Did you just dismiss them like most other races, or were you secretly hoping for a Vorcha romance? Let us know your view in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, then it would be great of you to show your support by leaving us a like. And if you are a lover of Mass Effect, then put that subscribe button to use. Let us know what race you want to see next, and until next time, goodbye everyone.